Dear friend, you know, there's something strange about being human that we don't talk about enough. The mind doesn't stop. Even when you want it to, you're exhausted, you've done everything you're supposed to do for the day, it keeps going. You lie down at night, and instead of sleep arriving naturally, you find yourself replaying a conversation from 3 days ago. Or planning something that won't happen for 2 weeks. Or thinking about a decision you need to make, except you're not actually making it, you're just circling it, looking at it from different angles, wearing a groove in your thoughts. And it's not always anxious thinking, either. Sometimes it's just active. The mind producing thoughts the way lungs produce breath. Continuous. Automatic. Relentless. People notice this in different ways. Some people notice it when they're trying to enjoy something, a meal, a sunset, a conversation, and they realize they're not actually there. They're thinking about the next thing, or the last thing, or some hypothetical thing that might never happen. The moment is occurring, but they're somewhere else entirely. Others notice it in the quiet spaces. When the house is finally empty, when the work is done, when there's nothing demanding their attention, and instead of rest, there's just noise. Mental noise. A kind of background static that never quite resolves into silence. And here's what's interesting. We've built an entire world that assumes the mind should be still sometimes. We have concepts like peace of mind and quiet contemplation and being present. We talk about meditation and mindfulness as if they're natural states we should be able to access easily. And yet, for most people, these states are rare, fleeting, and difficult to maintain. The mind's natural state seems to be motion. Not rest. Motion. You see this in how people structure their lives. They fill every gap. Music in the car, podcasts while cooking, scrolling while waiting, television while eating. And this isn't necessarily pathological, it might just be an acknowledgement of what the mind is already doing. If the mind is going to run anyway, we might as well give it something to run on. But then there are moments when you can't fill the gap. When you're stuck in traffic without your phone. When you wake up at 3 in the morning and the house is dark. When you're sitting in a waiting room with nothing but your thoughts. And that's when you feel it most acutely, the mind doesn't rest. It just keeps producing. Thoughts about things you need to do. Things you should have done differently. Things other people might be thinking. Things that could go wrong. Things that might go right. Plans, memories, hypotheticals, worries, ideas, observations, all of it churning, overlapping, never quite finishing before the next thing begins. And the exhausting part isn't always the content of the thoughts. Sometimes it's just the fact that they won't stop. The sheer continuousness of it. The inability to turn it off, even when you desperately want to. So what is this? Why does the mind work this way? One way to think about it is that the mind is a problem-solving organ, and it's always scanning for problems. That's its job. It's trying to keep you alive, keep you safe, keep you functioning in a complex world. And to do that, it has to think ahead, plan, anticipate, remember, analyze. This was useful, presumably, when humans lived in environments where threats were immediate and survival required constant vigilance. You needed to remember where the good water was. You needed to notice patterns in animal behavior. You needed to plan for winter, avoid predators, navigate social hierarchies. But now we live in a world where most immediate threats have been removed, and yet the mind is still doing what it was designed to do. It's still scanning, still anticipating, still trying to solve things. Except now the problems are different. They're not where will I find food tomorrow, but what did my colleague mean by that comment, and am I saving enough for retirement, and should I have responded to that text differently? The problems are less concrete and more abstract. Less immediate and more distant. Less about survival and more about everything else. Status, meaning, purpose, relationships, identity, future possibilities, past regrets. And here's the thing about abstract problems, they don't get solved the same way concrete problems do. If you're hungry, you eat, and the problem is resolved. But if you're worried about whether you're living your life correctly, there's no simple action that resolves it. The mind can keep working on that problem indefinitely without ever arriving at a solution. This creates a kind of loop. The mind identifies something as a problem. It works on the problem. It doesn't find a complete solution. So it keeps working. And because there's no clear endpoint, it can work on the same problem for years. You see this pattern everywhere. People who can't stop thinking about a relationship that ended. People who replay arguments they had, trying to figure out what they should have said. People who plan conversations that will never happen. People who worry about outcomes they can't control. And what's strange is that this doesn't feel optional. It doesn't feel like you're choosing to think about these things. The thoughts just appear, already in motion, like they were happening in the background and you've only just now become aware of them. There's also a social dimension to this. We live in a world that constantly tells us to be more, do more, achieve more, improve more. And the mind takes this instruction seriously. It's always measuring, comparing, evaluating. Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I falling behind? And because the standards keep shifting, because there's always something more you could be doing, someone doing it better, some version of yourself you haven't yet become, the mind never arrives at a place where it can say, this is finished. This is enough. You can rest now. Instead, it keeps generating new versions of insufficiency. New things to worry about. New ways you're not measuring up. New problems to solve. And this is compounded by the fact that we're surrounded by information. Constantly. News, social media, messages, emails, notifications. The mind is trying to process an amount of information that no human mind in history has ever had to process. And it can't keep up. So it's always a little bit behind, always trying to catch up, always feeling like there's something it's missing. This creates a kind of ambient tension. A sense that you should be paying attention to something, responding to something, dealing with something. Even when you're not actively doing anything, there's this feeling that you should be. And the mind interprets this feeling as a problem. So it starts working on it. What am I forgetting? What should I be doing? What's going to go wrong if I don't figure this out? The mind never rests because it perceives rest as dangerous, as negligence, as a failure to prepare, to anticipate, to control. Now, if you bring faith into this, or even just an older, deeper way of thinking about human life, you start to see this differently. There's a passage in the scriptures where it says, "Be still and know that I am God." And what's interesting about that instruction is that it treats stillness as something that requires faith. It's not just a relaxation technique. It's a statement about the nature of reality. The instruction is essentially saying, you can stop. The world will not collapse if your mind stops working for a moment. There is something holding things together, and it is not your constant vigilance. This is a radically different view of how life works. Because the mind's default assumption is that everything depends on it. That if you stop thinking, planning, worrying, controlling, things will fall apart. But faith suggests that there is an order to things that exists outside of your mental effort. That the sun rises whether you worry about it or not. That your heart beats without your conscious instruction. That there is a kind of underlying structure to reality that you are part of, but not in control of. And if that's true, if there is something larger holding things together, then the mind's constant activity might not be as necessary as it feels. This doesn't mean you become passive or irresponsible. It means you recognize the limits of what your thinking can actually accomplish. Some things are genuinely yours to handle. But many things, most things, maybe, are not. There's a kind of wisdom in older traditions about this. The idea that humans are not meant to carry everything. That there is a right size to what any one person can hold, and beyond that, you have to let go. You have to trust. But trust is difficult when you've been taught that everything depends on you. When the culture around you is constantly reinforcing the idea that you are the author of your own life, the master of your own fate, entirely responsible for every outcome. If that's your framework, then of course the mind can't rest. Because resting would mean relinquishing control. And relinquishing control feels like failure. But what if control was never the point? What if the goal wasn't to manage every variable, solve every problem, anticipate every outcome, but to live faithfully within the life you've been given? This is where faith becomes less about belief and more about orientation. It's a different way of positioning yourself in the world. Not as the one who has to make everything work, but as the one who participates in something larger. And from that perspective, the mind's restlessness starts to look less like diligence and more like a kind of existential anxiety. A refusal to accept the limits of human knowing, human control, human responsibility. There's a phrase from the Christian tradition, "Do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself." And what that's really saying is that there is a natural boundary to what you should carry. Today has its own concerns. Tomorrow will have its own. And trying to live in both at once, trying to manage the future while inhabiting the present, fractures your attention and exhausts your mind. The instruction isn't don't plan or don't prepare. It's don't carry tomorrow's weight today. Let each day hold what it's meant to hold. This is hard to do. Because the mind wants to prepare for every eventuality. It wants to make sure nothing bad happens, nothing goes wrong, nothing catches you off guard. But life doesn't work that way. Things go wrong anyway. Surprises happen anyway. The future remains uncertain no matter how much you think about it. And in some strange way, faith is about making peace with that. Not because uncertainty is comfortable, but because it's true. And living in alignment with what's true even when it's uncomfortable is more restful than trying to maintain an illusion of control. So maybe the mind's restlessness isn't a problem to be solved. Maybe it's a condition to be understood. The mind is doing what minds do. It's thinking. It's processing. It's trying to make sense of things. That's not a malfunction. That's just what it is. But we can change our relationship to it. We can stop expecting the mind to be something it's not. We can stop treating mental quietness as the default state and mental activity as the aberration. Maybe the mind is like weather. Sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, sometimes overcast, sometimes clear. And you don't control the weather, you just live in it. You adjust to it. You make room for it. When the mind is active, you notice it. You observe it. You don't necessarily believe everything it tells you, and you don't necessarily act on every impulse it produces. But you also don't fight it. You don't treat it like an enemy. Because fighting your own mind is exhausting. And it doesn't work. The more you try to force your thoughts to stop, the more they persist. The more you resist the restlessness, the more prominent it becomes. But if you stop resisting, if you just let the mind do what it's doing while you do what you're doing, something shifts. You can think about 100 things and still wash the dishes. You can have a restless mind and still go for a walk. The thoughts don't have to be resolved before life can continue. And sometimes, in the middle of doing something ordinary, something that doesn't require much mental effort, the mind settles a little. Not because you forced it to, but because it found something else to attend to. The rhythm of walking, the warmth of water on your hands, the sound of wind in the trees. The mind doesn't rest by effort. It rests by release. And maybe that's the real insight here. That rest isn't the absence of thought. It's the absence of resistance. It's the moment when you stop trying to make your mind be different than it is and just let it be what it is, active, wandering, restless, while you remain steady. You are not your thoughts. You are the one aware of your thoughts. And that distinction matters. Because if you are your thoughts, then every anxious thought means you're anxious, every sad thought means you're sad, every restless thought means you're restless. And you have to fix it, manage it, control it. But if you are the one aware of the thoughts, if you are the space in which thoughts appear and disappear, then you have more room. The thoughts come and go, and you remain. This doesn't mean thoughts don't affect you. They do. But they don't define you. They don't have the final word on who you are or what your life is. And maybe that's where faith enters again. Not as a set of beliefs you have to maintain, but as a kind of grounding. A reminder that there is something in you that is deeper than your thoughts. Something steady, even when the mind is not. Some people call that the soul. Some people call it the true self. Some people call it the image of God within. Whatever you call it, it's the part of you that doesn't change when your thoughts change. The part that remains when everything else is in flux. And when you can touch that even briefly, even occasionally, the mind's restlessness becomes less overwhelming. It's still there. But it's not everything. So where does that leave us? The mind will keep doing what it does. It will keep thinking, planning, worrying, imagining. That's not going to change. And maybe it doesn't need to. Maybe the goal isn't a perfectly quiet mind. Maybe the goal is a life that's worth living even when the mind is noisy. A life where you do the things that matter to you, connect with people, create things, contribute to the world regardless of whether your thoughts have settled. A life where you carry what's yours to carry and release what isn't. A life where you recognize that you are not in control of everything, and that's not a failure, it's just the truth. And in that truthfulness, there's a kind of rest. Not the rest of a silent mind, but the rest of a clear conscience. The rest of knowing you did what you could with what you had. The rest of trusting that the rest, whatever happens beyond your effort, beyond your knowing, beyond your control, will unfold as it unfolds. The mind will keep moving. But you don't have to move with it. You can be still, even in the middle of the noise. You can be grounded, even when everything feels uncertain. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what we're looking for all along. Not the absence of thought, but the presence of peace. Not a mind that rests, but a life that holds you steady while the mind does what minds do. You're going to think. You're going to worry sometimes. You're going to have restless nights and distracted days. That's part of being human. But it's not the whole story. There's more to you than your thoughts. More to life than what your mind can process. And when you remember that, when you step back and see the bigger picture, the restlessness doesn't disappear, but it becomes smaller. More manageable. Less frightening. Because you realize that the mind's inability to rest is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's just a sign that you're alive. That you're engaged. That you're paying attention to your life. And that attention, even when it's anxious, even when it's scattered, even when it's exhausting, is still a form of presence. Still a form of care. So let the mind do what it does. And you do what you're meant to do. Live your life. Love the people around you. Do your work. Rest when you can, even if the rest is imperfect. And trust that the same force that keeps the stars in their courses and the seasons in their rhythm can hold your life too. You don't have to think it all into being. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to be here. Now. As you are. And that's enough. Thank you for being here. If you'd like more moments like this, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and share the light. This is Dear Emma, sending you light and love.